Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today we're going to be going over another one of the Druid fire skills, because I'm on a fire kick lately, and that is the Volcanus, or the Volcano. Volcano is an ability that you can really get a lot of damage out of, and it has to do with placement, because you want to place the Volcanus in the correct location, which is directly underneath the anus. Volcanus, the anus, literally. So what you do with Volcano is you want to find your monster. Let's pretend this pillar, or this little doojank right, you know, this one, since the merc wants to be cute, is the monster. Your goal is to put that directly underneath of the monster's anus. That's essentially how it works. And if you do it correctly, you're going to get a pretty large amount of damage. Now, how much damage does Volcano do, and how does it actually work? Well, it's actually kind of complicated. So, first off, there is a damage for the Volcano itself, which is a size 3 Volcano. The size 3 little protrusion from the ground here is going to damage any monster that is standing over it at a rate which is pretty nice. It's just going to continually pulse that damage, which is both physical and fire, by the way, to the target that is standing directly on top of it. Now, it is a size 3, so it will actually hit more than just the monster that's standing directly on top of it. But it does pretty good damage if you put it directly under a monster. Then it also starts to shoot out these little doojanks all over the place. These are also physical and fire. Both physical and fire damage for the Volcano and the Volcano eruption. The eruption hits the ground, and it actually makes a small little area which does fire damage. It's actually fire and physical as well. So everything about this ability is fire and physical. When I first started using this ability, I always thought that, like, some aspects of it were physical, some aspects of it were fire, some, you know, like I didn't think that everything was physical and fire, but everything is physical and fire. The standing over it damage is physical and fire. The impact damage from the little doodads are physical and fire. The fire damage, which is on the ground, is physical and fire. And because everything has a physical component to it, it can all potentially be blocked by the target that is being hit by it, including the fire damage, which is a component of the physical damage. So it actually functions in a way that allows you to potentially block the damage if you have a really nice block rate. You can get hit by both the Volcano and the explosions and the fire all at the same time, depending on how they land. So notice how some of these will land very close to the Volcano. So you have some of the little explosions will actually hit very, very close to the Volcano. These ones that hit very close to the Volcano will actually hit the target that is being attacked by the Volcano, and they will dish out multiple damage elements as well. Now, Volcano has a lot of synergies, and they're kind of split. So if you want to enhance the physical side of Volcano, Molten Boulder gets you the physical damage increase. Whereas if you want to increase the fire aspect, you do Fissure and Armageddon, both of which will enhance the total damage of the ability. Now, it does hit multiple times, multiple times, so even though the damage output on the screen doesn't really seem like a lot at 1,167 to 1,176 and 1,594 to 1,758, it really doesn't seem like a lot, but when you use it on a monster, you notice that it really does some pretty significant damage. Let me see if I can find a tasty little morsel here to Volcanus. And as you can see, the monsters take a pretty significant amount of damage from the Volcano. Like, it's not a slouch of an ability, and even the little effects that come out do a pretty significant amount of damage as well. And the other beautiful thing about the Volcano is that it pairs very well with another very good ability from the same tree, which is Fissure. So Fissure is also an ability that you can cast directly on a target, and it's also an ability that basically appears beneath the monster's feet. So you can actually stack Volcano and Fissure, thanks to the next hit delay changes, by the way, on top of each other, and it makes for some pretty amazing damage output. This is pretty crazy because the two abilities are very good AoE damage in a respective area. And so when you take a monster, like for instance this Pit Lord, let's drag him down, and you put your Volcano and your Fissure directly under his feet, he dies pretty dang fast. And that's of course not even considering the other things that you can do. Now, Volcano does have some issues though, just the same way that Fissure does. Volcano doesn't really like to be used on specific areas, and it's something that we have to go over. So when it comes to Volcano, like when you have steps and various places, like this straightaway right here, you can put a Volcano on that. That's perfectly fine. But you're not putting a Volcano usually on things like steps. Notice how it just won't let me put it on the steps no matter how many times I try. But you can put it at the bottom of the steps, or you can put it at like the top of the steps. But it's not going to let you put it on the steps. And it's actually quite interesting when you actually explore all the various places that it doesn't let you put it. It also has trouble putting it up against walls like this. Notice how it will not let me cast it up against the edge of the wall. However, if I pull it back just a little bit from the edge of the wall, it will let me cast it near the edge of the wall. So you cannot actually cast it on the actual edges of the walls. Obviously, you can't cast it off into outer space either. Steps are basically outright, and anything that is a flat platform that's large enough will accept a Volcanus. Now, in my experience, though, like you're not going to run into those situations a lot. Most of the time, the monsters are within range to have a Volcano placed directly underneath of them, and that is really the best and most optimal position for the Volcano. It does have a lot of synergies, unfortunately, which does make it a little bit difficult to build early on, but it's definitely an extremely powerful one. Now, back in the day, it was actually a terrible one to use because of the 4-second casting delay. There was actually a huge issue where if you cast an ability with a casting delay, it would then put all the other abilities with casting delays also on delay. And so casting Volcano would basically make all the other abilities useless. And so for a long time, nobody wanted to play the Fire Druid because of it. But recently, with changes, the Volcano casting delay no longer causes any of the other skills to go on delay. And on top of that, because of the next hit delay changes, the Volcano now no longer interferes with Fissure, which makes Fissure and Volcano an absolutely devastating combination to use on monsters. So like, for instance, we've got some little spear cats here, and I'm just going to Volcano, Fissure directly on top of them, and I'm just going to walk away. Volcano, Fissure, Fissure, Volcano, Fissure, Volcano, Fissure, Volcano, Fissure. And as you can see, extremely powerful combination between the two abilities. Volcano and Fissure just tend to synergize very well together because both of them can be cast at range. Both of them can be cast, and you just simply forget that they're even there. They just kind of do their thing for their duration, and you don't have to worry about it. The other skills, unfortunately, are not quite as synergistic with Volcano and Fissure. Armageddon, which requires you to be directly near the target, would require you to stand directly on top of the target to combine that with Volcano and Fissure. Firestorm also has a relatively limited range, and it also does pretty crap damage unless you hit the monster with all 3 of the tines, which means that you generally have to be very close to the monster. So Armageddon and Firestorm actually go very well together because you have to stand literally right next to the monster's face to get maximum damage output. Whereas Fissure and Volcano work very, very well together because you don't need to stand in the monster's face to get maximum damage output from these abilities. And honestly, when it comes to Volcano, I just like saying Volcanus Uranus. And my video probably is going to get demonetized for that. But you know what? It's worth it. It's worth it. Somebody give me like $1, because that's probably all I'm ever going to make from the video anyway. Interestingly enough, because of the way that Volcano is actually half physical and half fire, building purely into negative fire resistance and building purely into fire skill damage doesn't really do the skill justice. It's been my experience that you kind of need both negative fire res and a negative physical resistance to get the best effect out of Volcano. And that is one of the reasons why you see me running a mercenary with an amplified damage spear, because amplified damage is going to give me a huge boost to the physical aspect of the skills, like Volcano, Armageddon, and Molten Boulder, whereas things like Mang Songs with the negative fire resistance, fire facets, flickering flame, and so forth and so on will give me a pretty nice boost to the fire aspect of the skills. And if I boost up both sides of the skills enough, I actually get some pretty sick damage output from these abilities. All in all, Volcano is an absolutely amazing ability, but it does have a rather long casting delay. 4 seconds is literally 100 frame delay combined with your casting speed, which could be like 7 frames. So you're looking at 107 frame casting delay between volcanoes. So Volcano is definitely not a skill that you are going to like use as a main ability, because it just has a really long casting delay. So you're going to weave in other abilities in with it. You're going to weave in Fissure, you're going to weave in Molten Boulder, you're going to weave in your Firestorm, you're probably going to be using Armageddon, and it's just one of those things where you just don't really have a lot of choices. You cast it, you forget about it for 4 seconds, and then you cast it again in 4 seconds. Now there is an ability or an item that actually has Volcano on it. It's called Destruction. And I actually do have a Theorycraft video up on a Destruction Werewolf, and it was actually a very fun build. And the Destruction Werewolf utilizes an item which has a chance to proc volcanoes, which is pretty cool. And so you could just be spamming volcanoes all over the place. This is actually one of the more interesting things that you can do with proc items, is you can proc spells and things like that can just like spawn abilities. And the Destruction rune word allows you to not only spam volcanoes, but also molten boulders too, which is pretty cool. If you want to take a look at that video is already up, and it's basically just me spamming volcanoes everywhere. I mean, just spewing garbage all over the place. I think that's pretty much it when it comes to this ability. It's an amazing ability, but it's also just part of the tree. You really can't utilize Volcano by itself, and, you know, it's just something that you utilize with other things. So get out there and volcanus some anuses, and as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching. Come on, outro, play! Why is my outro revolting against me? It just keeps revolting.